Halo Reach, a game that was a last send-off to Bungie. A Halo Bungie, not Destiny Bungie. Bungie in the past was known for its Halo, since every Halo game is very innovative. But except this game, Halo Combat Evolved can be played on consoles and it was the first-person shooter. Halo 2 started the online multiplayer gaming for consoles. Halo 3 starts as custom games, well with community focus like Forge. Halo 3 ODST is a first-person shooter that is a semi-open world and brings Firefight on the table. Halo Reach is where everything is the same, as Halo Infinite combined. Halo games before were innovative and changed its design, but Halo Reach, while more polished and refined, wanting to make a difference to its story. Halo Reach is a game that combines everything, whether it's army abilities to familiar equipment, a campaign that reminds you of their scale, armor from Halo 3 to expanding an impact from the entire Halo franchise, elites that reminds you far back from Combat Evolved, Forge becoming an improved version of Forge. There's a lot of ways that Halo Reach is. It's a game that is the biggest library game of Halo's Bungie, and a prequel for Combat Evolved, and where it was started. After Halo 3 finished the fight, Microsoft wanted Bungie to make 2 more Halo games while giving the IP to Microsoft, so they can be independent. While ODST was being made by a small team and a year developed, Bungie is already planning to make a prequel for Combat Evolved, so they want to make it connect and more sense on how they were on the ship at the first place. People know Master Chief won't die, and that is very predictable in 3 games. Sure, he had a lot of challenges like the Flood and the Covenant, but in the end, you see him survive, so Bungie wants to make the enemies more threatening again, while having that 30 seconds of fun, revamping the elites' behavior, grunts feel tanky, and cannon fodder, making them speak in their native language again. Sounds familiar, Combat Evolved? All of these combined will make the player connect to the story by knowing the Covenant being more threatening, themes, and the world people can be immersed in. More on the presentation later. The first time ever, there will be Spartans fighting with you, and what makes it special is that Master Chief isn't the only Spartan. There are other Spartans in the universe that time. Well, they wanted to make 7 Spartans, but due to confusion, they cut it down to 5 Spartans, so the player can understand. And the multiplayer, Halo 3 succeed because of the former of Halo 2, and its community. But Bungie wants to make maps that connect to campaign and firefight, which distract the environmental artists to have it fit to campaign, multiplayer, and firefight, which the developers admit that it was a pain in the ass, and customization and progression an improvement to the former, which your armor is connected to Noble 6, making us Noble 6 the player itself. And while we have BTB, Slayer, and other modes, Bungie also want to make a new mode that people will replay year after year. Invasion, a mode that is for Spartans versus elites. And Forge's major step is making Forge World. While Halo 3 Forge was really great in the first try, they want to have a major step and want to make Forge World that you're in Halo, wanting to also have a lot of variety of locations to edit in Forge World. And when Halo 3 ODST released in 2009, Bungie became almost independent, but needed to make one more main Halo game. But there was one mode, and that mode is Firefight. Firefight was the only mode for Halo 3 ODST. It was successful Horde mode, since it has tents as a ODST by having brutes, hunters, and power weapons, and one of the favorite mode for the community. Bungie can't abandon that since it was known for the community, so they also added Firefight, with the exception on customizing your loadouts and having to fight elites and be a Spartan. And that Spartan in the campaign is you. When playing Bungie Halo games to Halo 1 and 3, they're quite the same. The exception is the brutes and some slight modifications. They're still fun to fight and fix a lot of issues to the other sequels when it's problematic. But this time, when playing Reach, I can see the immediate difference when playing it. You can see your crosshair having bloom, the different technology of each guns, and its looks and feels, on what the Covenant and the Unity use as an experiment, and the grey look of the world Reach. But since this is already a prequel for Combat Evolved, and the last Halo Bungie, I appreciate this game's AI ever since 343 Industries made Halo 4 and 5, because it still has that familiar movesets from Reach, and its Halo Reach AI was all overhauled and changed a lot to its design, and elites is the main focus. They're not just hunchbacks anymore, they're fast, agile, and makes the player alerted. One minor elite can simply take you down on heroic, and what makes it also great is how it brings back Combat Evolved elements that were missing from Halo 2 and 3. Every rank has a distinction to its shields and behavior. One blue elite is different to the golden elite. Only one funny thought when writing the script is how the elites you're equal makes sense now on how they can fast melee you when you can fast melee them back. Grunts are more tanky and speak to their native language, which is a shame. The trilogy made grunts funny to their dialogue, but when Reach, there's not a lot of thoughts on the dialogue, and the difference is their native language and how they function oppositely. You see, grunts are energetic, fast, and say some stupid things. While they're quite tanky to be honest and quite a cannon fodder, they're rather used as pushovers because of the DMR. Just aim at the head and click. Jackals are more about Halo 1 functionally, except they don't flee and panic anymore. They're slow to react and more about becoming defensive. But the fast agile jackals that we remember from Halo 2 are now the subspecies, takes that role to the skirmishers. These skirmishers are gotta be the best and the worst. The reason why is because it's new and has an interesting backstory to the subspecies, and bad because when fighting them, you're quite slow and need to kill them at all times since they're fast, and sniper jackals are now a joke since they don't have a beam rifle at this time. Hunters got overhauled also, while in the trilogy there's an exploit on them. This time grenades, rockets don't have a lot of damage, and its back is the only weak spot instead of the front. They shoot on the floor instead of the direct hit. While people said hunters are tough in Halo Reach, I think it's great for a mini boss, except legendary since I agree with them, because instead of a fair challenge, it's gone retard mode instead. Brutes in this game became a joke. Sure, you can argue Halo 2 hasn't fully baked, but at least the brutes flank or distract you, and it can be deadly. Halo 3, while I view them as a weak elite, at least they have numbers and have an interesting command, even though they're not agile. And ODST increase the shields when fighting the brutes using UNSC rifles, and improve its aggressiveness. Halo Reach, the brutes became a joke, because they're easy to stick, headshot, and when using a needle rifler, they die instantly. In fact, they're like grunts that have more health that can melee, and never flee. Drones and Engineers gameplay is already familiar with other Halo games, so I won't elaborate them, but they function the same role as Drones' pesky annoyance, and Engineer giving mini shields to the allies. The AI in this game is really great for the most part, even though I have minor nitpicks and problems with the game. But one thing I like and started the trend from other Halo games, even recently Halo Infinite, is their armor. Halo games before use colors and some have armor, because no matter what kind of armor they're wearing, seeing the color can notice the difference and what rank it is. Halo Reach improves this, because while they still have the color, all of them have the armor that can recognize clearly on what armor and color. Instead of memorizing the color only, you can simply understand what armor they're wearing, so your brain functions simply even if you don't recognize it. And that is Halo's biggest strength, a variety of enemies and ranks, until when I start playing heroic. Don't worry, the game is great in my eyes. Some impacted the entire franchise. Some people have a gripe to the allies on Spartan squads, and while they're different in function, they occasionally became a Call of Duty soldier but with immunity, and since Spartan squads exist, there's not a lot of allies you met and will not follow you through missions even if you have a fire team. And since every time you stay with a Spartan, well, in some missions, there will be a lot of enemies, in fact that are a lot of grunts, that it became a shooting in the head often in repeat playthroughs. It became like memorizing it, connecting the dots. using the DMR and the plasma grenade, on where to know about the enemies. There's no perfect difficulty in this game, because when playing Legendary, it's like enemies are bullet sponges and makes you like a marine held. Heroic on the other hand feels easy with some parts, with the Thunder Skull on. You think getting killed in Halo 3 quickly in vehicles is annoying on Legendary? Mostly correct, but in Reach, while the improvements of the enemy being more threatening, is more about bullshitness rather than fair challenge. I think just experience what the game wants you to play to its design, because Halo is more about accessibility for anyone who has an Xbox or PC platform. But when wanting to have a near perfect difficulty, Heroic is the key, since the elite and other enemies can make you an underdog, since it makes you have an edge with the health system. While the health system in Halo games isn't perfect, at least it serves as a purpose for preparing you for future firefights if you have a low health. But the problem I have is armor abilities. Armor lock and drop shields can save your life by abusing it even if you're low health. You can just use the drop shield, then save a health pack by regaining your shields if you have no shields. While other abilities aren't that great, at least there's some parts that you can use, even if you barely use it, whether it's sprint or jetpack. They're only there sometimes so you can use it in case if you're in a bad position, same as an armor lock, or going to point A to be quicker. But what about level design then? Vehicle sections are an improvement even if they're not that scale. At least it still has those moments about Warhogs, Scorpions, and the Falcon is a major improvement to the flying vehicles, and the Saber program also. The only problem I have with the Saber program is just the lack of variety of enemies, but the gameplay of the Saber program is fun, so it's alright. Scorpion functions the same as the other tank levels, except you don't use it often. Warhog is an improvement from Halo 3, because while it has lack of skill and lack of allies, you can go two paths on where to go, or give context on why I should go do this. On foot, the level design is more about skill, and more open this time. You can go 3 lanes and pick where to go, and each firefight is dynamic enough in combat parts. Well, sometimes, not most of the time. Each part always breaks up the pace, and at least gives you a memorable mission, like New Alexandria, flying around, and being able to go on foot, bring back the generators, while seeing your homeworld being destroyed, or Sword Base when going to 2 paths on Warhog and having to defend and attack Sword Base. Although there is one mission that has a missed opportunity, and this is Halo itself. Halo never tried stealth, and I thought Nightfall could have been a stealth mission, and it was a missed opportunity for Halo to try. I tried doing stealth in some parts, but most of the time I would get spotted. My theory is rather Bungie is too afraid of doing stealth, since its core gameplay doesn't fit to the stealth, which I understand. It's just a damn shame experimenting it, even if it's a main game. So overall, the gameplay is pretty alright. The campaign has that memorable Halo parts mixed together in its core gameplay, even though there were some missteps in some parts where I questioned the decision of Bungie, because in Halo 3, they nailed the gameplay and it's still fun 14 years later. Reach on the other hand, had some few missteps, but at the same time gave us memorable missions. Halo games always has that great intro excluding Halo 5, whether it's Halo 4 or Halo 1. But what surprised me in Halo Reach is how it has that different tone. Just like its gameplay, it always has that strength and wanting to see the scale in the world, while seeing the dead civilians, troopers, and randomly, when looking at the floor, there are jackal footprints, setting the tone of the Covenant immediately, and after that, when going outside, it went flat. Contact! My problem when revealing the Covenant is the lack of enemies, but rather cannon fodders first. And also the hand holding in the intro irritates me, because when 30 seconds are combined to these scenes, it's rather annoying because there's nothing to interact and felt lifeless. Unless there's a big but. If you can see the jackal footprints and the skirmishers jumping, it makes that hunting noise and ready to get ambushed. But when going inside, my problem is the first encounter doesn't have that intimidating voice to it to get ambushed. Not a single elite except grunts and annoying skirmishers. And when going outside, we have a decent Halo gameplay, going to the space just to get ambushed by zealots. What I dislike about the intro is how the best part is always the last, because when getting ambushed, it makes the elites not a joke again, and making the elites return to be the might of the Covenant again. It's just my huge problem with Winter Contingency is how the tutorial section is really bad. Why does Emil needs to get this red brick instead of you? Why do we need to use sprint? So they can already see the hints of your screen? Sure, the tone is quite scary and quiet, but seeing these details are so rare that the average person won't see. But the rest of these are the action, and trying to kill every Covenant force. And what I like about Reach is when you clean that problem, a new one comes up, and repeats, till you can't find a way and have no choice to bring Cortana. And that's what I like. In its themes, while the gameplay, we can still beat the Covenant using the sandbox and view them as classic Halo gameplay. We instead see the presentation and show you're losing, but you're still not at loss. There's still a chance, and making the Covenant in the cutscenes a threat by killing your characters one by one. And what I also adore is how Reach is intended to show about the world, but still got a cult following on the Noble team. Whether people think about Noble 6 hiding in the cave or still mentioning June in Halo Infinite is just insane. And what way to say it, how the Noble squad is really great, making things wanting more. Whether it's Cat relation to the old Noble 6 in the Remember Reach trailer, or where the fuck is June after he said dying is gay. The deaths in this game are really unexpected and one of the moments you'll remember. Like George, what I feel like is the older brother of Noble 6, sacrificing himself just so his younger brother can try his best to make it count.
Tell him to make it count.
The characters in this game, even if they don't have the screen time, still has those memorable dialogue. George is one of my favorite characters because even if he's a Spartan too, he's the most human and acts like you're his older brother because he's with you a lot when he's alive. While people view him as a heavy weapons guy, I disagree. He's the most empathized Spartan. June is a sniper where he's a silent killer and a survivalist. He survived a lot of wars like Reach or the Covenant War in the classic trilogy, and people are speculating him survive in Halo Infinite.
I have visual on hostile infantry.
Cat is well the smartest and the injured Spartan, while trying to find a way to manage and gives ideas to Carter, whether it's the Corvette or fixing scrap metals.
May I?
Don't cut yourself.
Emil is the most badass and probably the edgiest. He's the person who lost his brother and makes him angry that he became the intimidating Spartan and wanting to show the Covenant the fear. While he can be the edgy, he's always with Noble in the end.
It's been an honor, sir. Likewise.
Carter, the leader of the Noble squad. While he's the squad leader, he lets anyone suggest like in the military and always finds a way to trust and help Noble reach his goals by any means necessary.
6. That AI chose you. She made the right choice.
Noble 6 is where we are like him. He's anyone, whether the heavy Spartan, headhunter. He's literally the jack of all trades. He's almost like Master Chief, but this time, you're able to make a random Spartan anyone that you like.
Nice work, by the way. I aim to please.
And that is my breakdown on what I like about the characters. People always view Noble Team as stereotypes of Spartans, but they always have something behind, that they're not one-dimensional, and seeing your Spartans getting killed makes the world more grey and darker, and the audio amplifies this. Marty and Michael were the same composer's lead, but with expectations this high, it makes them pressure a lot. Halo 1 is the least pressure because even the troubled development, it still has those people having low expectations. But after Halo 1, most people love Marty and Michael composing, and it led every time with the high expectations, every release. And while I love Halo Wars and Halo 2 composing so much, that I will admit, Halo Reach has one of my favorite soundtracks, and that soundtrack is Lone Wolf. It's so different to its melody, but the flavor is still the same, and it has the sadness, serious tone in it. In fact, the series in this game also reflects to its audio design. UNSC guns are not just BB guns anymore from Halo 3. Halo Reach sounds like firearms and doesn't understand the Covenant language in its music. And that sad tone is also from the Epilogue scene, where it's my favorite soundtrack also. Seeing your vessel when the character dies, while your effort is to kill every Covenant you see, while the glass breaks, unable to see the HUD, and the dead 14 Spartans in the Halo 2 original Xbox reference, is just sad. What I like about Halo Reach is that you're not a machine that is like from Halo 3 I Love Bees. You're just a human who has gadgets and shields. And that is enough for the last send-off to Bungie that we miss. But that said story, there's a problem. No, not its narrative, presentation, it's just the timing. Halo 1 released a novel for the prequel of Combat Evolved on Reach, but that Reach is very different and fuck up the lore a lot, making the timeline confusing and inconsistent. While I'm not a Halo lore, except a person who keeps saying iconic, I can mostly understand why. It ruins the timeline. What Halo 4 suffered in the change of the art style is the inconsistent with the timeline, with the opening scene, where Halsey talks about the Covenant War, while the elites look different. In Reach, it messed up with the timeline of the Halo novel. The gameplay also doesn't reflect with the story. While I do love the upgraded AI and change sometimes, it just doesn't work because if you make the game harder, it can hurt the gameplay having fun. And while I give the characters a positive note, it doesn't feel like you're in a squad. It's just little Spartans you interact regardless if it's George or anyone. The lack of screen time and interaction with the Spartans hurts the characters, because while people appreciate it, some people don't. But regardless of that complaint, the characters always wants me to leave me something more, regardless of their strength. It took me time to even appreciate the Spartans and want to know its lore. But not wanting to leave a negative note, what Bungie succeeded is the characters, dialogue, and its world, and all combined is a unique story perspective of the Spartans that their deaths leave an impact on the community to the heroes of Reach.
It didn't take long for Reach to fall. Our enemy was ruthless, efficient, but they weren't nearly fast enough.
Halo Reach, where I consider it to be the mix of 343 Industries and Bungie, and it's a game that can surprise you and disappoint you, and I want to make this one a good and bad, rather than being positive, only in Reach, so time to feet drop as a Spartan. What's great about Halo these days is the experience with multiplayer. Halo 2 is online and has an amazing innovation for online, and Halo 3 expands by being polished, smooth, fun, armors, maps, forge, and the fourth pillar. Halo Reach, while it doesn't change a lot to its movement, shooting, melee, except its fourth pillar, which we'll discuss later, but one positive note to Halo Reach is the modes, and everything launches on day one. The big advantage of Halo Reach is able to play the modes you like and have diversity. It's beneficial because people can still play the meat and potatoes and still play the same or different, which is a shame because not a lot of people credit Bungie able to have a lot of content except armor in day 1, and its pillars still work as a classic Halo, this time slowing down like Halo 3. Halo 2 was my favorite due to its fast pace and complex buttons, but Halo Reach is a simple button for ability to send, and the fourth pillar never works. Loadouts for abilities is a neat idea, but it's not executed really well, because there are frustrating elements with the armor lock, drop shields, jetpack. To be fair, I give where credit is due to Bungie attempting this, but rather than making a new set of abilities, why not improve Halo 3's equipment? Armor abilities are rather frustrating because you don't know what the enemy ability uses, and not having equal starts. Halo 3 has this issue, but at least equipment is only one-time use, and it can be a power weapon. One positive note with Reach is armor lock can be annoying, but at least it has consequences on staying at the open. But instead of the flowing on the 3 pillar, 1 pillar rather stops the pace of the gunfight. Sprint is controversial because it's an easy escape, and it's an annoying pause when after you sprint. No wonder why Halo fixed this issue. Jetpack is rather something I dislike. While as a jetpack user it can have good spots, sometimes it can be frustrating when seeing jetpacks in the annoying spot, or don't need map control. But if you use the jetpack incorrectly, people can see you in the open and shoot you down with the DMR, and camo is just camping. And other abilities like evade is the same as sprint, and drop shields are just stupid because it's like bubble shield, but able to do it every time. Holograms are depending. It can be used as, or meme the enemy. The 4th pillar, while they're annoying, at least there's some consequences when doing it incorrectly. So while people bash armor abilities, I agree with the drop shield though. At least it can benefit the enemy or the user itself. But I admit, it ruined the map design, and we'll talk about map design and flowness. Map design in Halo Reach maps isn't the greatest because while they have structure, it's ruined by the 4th pillar, and there's some maps that are connected to campaign that you need to find the same map due to its repetitiveness. And while 343 Industries update the game and improve, there's some maps that I hated. To be fair, the only maps I like are the Countdown, Spire, Blackout from Halo 2, Tempest, and other maps are just decent. But what I despise the most is rather maps that are long-range firefights, like Forge World Hemorrhage, and the DMR is one of the most controversial guns. And while the Bloom has a visual indicator, unlike Combat Evolved, Halo 2 and 3 made the battle rifle no bloom, but rather no bullshit. When playing competitive Halo, there's always no bullshitness but rather skill. That's why Halo 2 and 3 was a success, and Halo 1 Bloom isn't that obnoxious, but it requires skill. DMR I can say the same, but I think the DMR Bloom is misused. While I appreciate Bungie making the long range nerf, its long range doesn't fix the issue with precision weapons. While Halo 2 or 3 was one of the games that I dislike precision weapons because regular weapons don't have a chance, at least when fighting it's not about randomization. Unlike Reach, it's randomized to its armor and gunfight, which ruined the Halo core pillars. In fact, Halo Reach competitive scene is rather ruined because the pros in Halo love its depth due to its BR isn't random but requires aiming, precision, movement, grenades, and when knowing the melee. But Halo Reach forces randomness and its armor abilities that made the competitive struggle. To be fair, 343 Industries fixed this problem in Reach for the DMR, but it's too late. It has been years since they fixed it, and now we gotta go to the weapons. Weapons in this game can be good and sometimes annoying. The new weapons are fantastic to use because they're able to wipe people if you can use them correctly, or trolling like the grenade launcher, and each gun still does the fulfilling role and can be fun if you're a casual Halo fan like myself. Most of the time I spend AR rounds rather than DMR. DMR is rather frustrating because of long range and probably those who prefer that. I can't play DMR rounds because I'm probably bad, and Slayer still has those modes, and people prefer SWAT, Fiesta, and etc. and the player freedom. Which brings me to customization. Customization in Reach is the biggest strength, or rather, player expression, like armors, armor effect, seeing your record score, forge, and being able to customize a lot of Spartan types that are connected to campaign is insane. What Bungie accomplished is the community features, and that gives them praise. Forge is one of the reasons why it adds so many maps, but some maps are not that great or bad, it's decent. And people still use custom games for these fun modes that can be forged. Even you can do cool stuff with custom games, and the MCC has a custom browser. But there's one more mode I want to talk about. Invasion. It's one of my favorite modes because while in the MCC I rarely get into a match, at least I still remember the maps like Spire, Boneyard, Breakpoint. And Invasion is great for having that tense moments where the elite capture your point and they're pushing to phase 2 and more classes pop up depending on what class you are, and having that dynamic, enjoyable match on how many times you can play. You can say Bungie went all out here, that 343 Industries made Warzone and Dominion because of Invasion, maybe. Which to this day, while I have problems with DMR armor abilities, the Invasion mode makes up to the problems, and BTB can be fun on a casual level because of its vehicles and entire sandbox. In fact, most of the time I spent is BTB and Invasion and Reach, and one improvement I like to point out in BTB is the sprint. Halo 3 takes a while to go point A to B due to its slow movement, unless you have boosters or the vehicles to do it. Having a sprint is really great. The fun factors in this game is really dependent if you're a huge casual Halo fan. You have a lot of modes that are great for casual and able to have fun on launch, but competitive there's a lack of ranking system, lack of competitive maps, but while Bungie made mistakes to the multiplayer, it can still have that fun or frustrating elements from its prequel, and we are about to start to Firefight. So before I start talking about Firefight, we have to give some context. A lot of games like Call of Duty, Left 4 Dead, or other horde games were in the market. Halo 3 ODST attempted this, and it worked a lot by its design, because when fighting a lot of Covenant as a ODST, there's a chance you can die, and chieftains are a huge threat, no matter what. There's the tension moment and feeling desperation that you use all the ammo and keep switching until you have time to breathe, and resupply Silent SMG or Silent Magnum. ODST was one of the horde modes that can work for me because of that reason. Halo's design is more about being the aggressor rather than defensive, and ODST is rather both, because when being the aggressor, you can die really quickly. That's why Firefight and ODST is alright when looking at it as a general gaming audience, because it's just another horde mode that in the 7th generation, it's quite standard. Halo Reach Firefight is something that is in my type. While its engine is heavily modified for abilities, big maps, and 4 players, they're quite easy to fight since Spartans has regen shields because of it, and more of an arcade mode instead of a horde mode. It's more racking the points instead of cooperation with your teammates and have tension, that you can refill your UNSC rifles, that you're not worried losing a lot of ammo. The only desperation you can get is to play heroic with 4 players, or with elites that can help the NPCs to kill you, which it's really good, but most of the time I always get cute on the arcade mode. There's one map that I like that I wish most games would try to do this when having to fight Firefight. Installation 4 is an update when Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary was released. You have some ODST backing you up, and I wish Halo brings allies to fight with you like what Modern Warfare 3 did to its Delta Squad, and when clearing up a wave, the Pelican drops a Warhog with another ODST. This is probably the first time I see uniqueness to one map from Installation 4, which is a shame that if Halo Infinite have Firefight mode like this, it would be cool. But going on topic, the Firefight is more about arcade instead of having that desperation mode from ODST. And while people love this change, and I can respect them since I prefer that desperation, and the bonus extras are you can modify your voice for Firefight and able to customize more if you don't like the vanilla type. The PC in this game is rather decent, but has some bugs. Recently, when making this video, I have NPCs that are stuck and delayed audio, which is something I noticed.
It's a ground game now.
It's been an honor, sir.
Likewise.
And my GDR helmet clipping is mostly reset, and I hope 343 Industries fixes them soon as possible. But in 2019, people love the PC port a lot, and servers are working well, games are working well, but what it lacks is PC systems that every PC user uses, like keybinds, frames, and etc. Also the audio issue in the game when it launched. It also adds some new Forge stuff, with more things to build, and that's it. If you have an Xbox One for the MCC, you're just getting the same experience with the PC. but with different controls. But what this MCC PC does is just able to have mods like Reach Ruby Rebalance. In fact, 343 Industries added mod support recently with the game, which is commendable, and added more armors like Medieval, the GDR helmet that Bungie scrapped, and the hilarious Mr. Chief helmet that added content, and are able to pick any modes you like, and fixes the issue from the PC Halo Reach launch. It's not a bad port. I just wish 343 Industries did better on launch, and I personally use PC when playing Halo now. I'm not used to controllers anymore because of 343 Industries making me want to buy MCC on the PC, and I commend 343 Industries attempting to bring these Halo games to PC, which in fact my theory why they did it is because of Halo Infinite. 343 Industries learned what the MCC can do as a live service, which is why they learned how to develop Halo Infinite to a PC game, and Bungie, reaching its vision and coming to the end. What I appreciate Bungie is how the game managed to hold up to its campaign by its AI, because 343 Industries to this very day use the same animation, same ideas from Halo Reach, which is very noticeable. And its effort on trying to change, but what it lacks in multiplayer is improving the formula. Halo Reach didn't improve from Halo 3 but rather removed parts that people have loved to its sandbox, gunplay, and the fourth pillar. Multiplayer is one of the meat and potatoes of what the game launch should be from every game. Always improving, always adding a lot of community features. In fact, it uses the UI to MCC like friend list, service records, and etc. And what I was disappointed about is how Bungie didn't use Reach as an example on launching a lot of modes from Destiny 1. Firefight might be one of the modes for a great dumb fun if you're tired of the multiplayer. In MCC, 343 Industries is doing a fantastic job on updating the MCC last few months ago, through seasons, bug fixes, and everything. I hope they learn what they did in the MCC, and Halo Infinite should take notes on the Halo Reach strength, because Halo Infinite needs this badly. All we know is we gotta wait for the future on 343 Industries' abilities for the Halo franchise. Recently, I saw the announcement from the Halo servers being shut down from the Xbox 360, and don't be sad. Without the community, for the Halo 3, Reach, and 4 won't exist, and you can play the MCC from all the classic Halo games, but it's not the classic 720p, 75, and 30 FPS. As Sergeant Johnson said,
Send me out with a bang.
While I didn't experience Halo 3 multiplayer a lot, I adore its campaign's gameplay, level design. Even if I had problems with the brutes, at least they improved most and a lot, and probably I will never get tired. I'll remember Halo 3, and I have been planning to do something special in this channel for one series that was for a middle market game.